So on this occasion, we had access via Studio Canal to the original free strip negative for the film, which is a big bonus to have, as a lot of these films have been lost to time, as thankfully Ladykillers was shot in 1954, which is when they started using safety film, free strip Technicolor. Anything really before sort of 1953, it would have been on nitrate film. So there's quite a lot of free strip films that have been lost, as nitrate has been suffered various fates, from fire to various other things that have befallen such films. So we were very lucky to get that, and we were very lucky as well that Studio Canal in this case wanted to invest in using that element. The main financial issue with it is because you've got 3 different black and white negatives, is that you've got to scan it 3 times, the yellow, the cyan and magenta separations, whereas previously a photochemical combined element being used, which you only have to scan once. So the scanning costs in this case are 3 times as much as they would have been using that other element. So we've got that as our starting foundation. We would then digitally combine that into, so basically making the YCM into an RGB image for the restoration. While the difficulty just before that is, because this was 4K 16-bit workflow for HDR, is that we accumulated 15 terabytes of scans for the film, which we then get to knock down to a third of that, but that data's still got to all be processed together. So once we've got that as the combined element, we then basically, you start to treat it almost like a normal restoration, but the registration is the next thing to handle. So originally the perforations would have been used to marry the different elements together, but over time film shrinks, and it's unlikely that all the different rolls of film or different parts of it would have shrunk at the same rate. So although you may combine the bottom left-hand perforation exactly, the rest of the image probably won't line up. So we can automate an amount of that. So in this case, we use Digital Vision Phoenix to do an overall marrying of the different color elements, but that tends to just do basically a XY positioning of that, so it will align them horizontally and vertically. But usually due to the warping, what you're finding is that you need to do a Z-axis alignment with that. So there are various softwares that can do that, but basically it's not easiest, but you get the best result really from doing that manually. So in this case, I had that task to do. So pretty much every shot in the film I have manually distorted through 4 points. We use the green as the master, as the green tends to be the image with the most detail. So I've manually distorted the red and the blue channel of each to match into the green channel on pretty much every shot, which brings the colors into register. On some shots that had, say, perforation damage, where this can knock out the process entirely, we've done slightly more involved things, such as doing a 4-point track on the perforation of each corner to basically lock the distortion of pretty much every frame down, and then done a master manual intervention on that. We should theoretically bring it back all into line, and then be able to use bits of other frames to fix that sort of damage with that. So after that bit's done and the stabilization is done, it gives a pretty firm foundation to do the normal parts of the restoration. So in this case, an extensive amount of semi-automated processing using Phoenix, again, cleaning up most of the dirt, obviously undoing things it shouldn't have removed and reinstating those within the image. So we've done all that. And then there's all the manual processes. In this particular film, we found that it looked like over time, one camera roll had been afflicted with some kind of, some sort of repeating rub mark that we had to fix thousands of instances of, which just appeared as sort of a blue smudge on through the middle of the image, just on some shots. So that's probably been there since day one, but hasn't really been as visible until we're looking at it now in UHD/4K. So we had to rectify that as best as possible. A few of the reels. Just it was actually on one short section. There was I think a 2,000 frame segment of it that was very badly tramlined, and I think just the blue separation. So rather than just use the entire another element for that, which would have lowered the overall quality of the film, we scanned that part of the other element and just used its blue channel from that. So we actually used the red and the green from the free strip original negative, and then just used the blue channel. So at least 2/3 of the information in that section is from the original negative. There's a lot of flicker as well, density fluctuation. Steve, our colorist, did a lot of work on that to manually do points on that. You tend to see it quite a lot in pre-strip films. There's sort of a breathing sort of goes on as the shots. So if you look at, say, if it's a 2-minute long shot, if you look 1 minute 30 seconds in, it can look a very different color than it did earlier on. So we can do a certain amount in that restoration, but really the colorist for the heroes on that bit painstakingly doing animated color values between all those sections. So yeah, so we fixed that. There's saying various rips and things. We did a lot of work on the title sequence to try and get that looking as best we could. As we found on that, where it had been originally composited, we had to go for sort of a happy medium on it, but the alignment was out on the text, and the alignment was out on the background in different ways. So we just had to try and make that look as best we could. The other challenges were whenever they're in a taxi or whenever they open the door to Mrs. Lopsided's house, it tends to deteriorate in terms of quality, where they've obviously photochemically added the backgrounds in later. So we removed tons and tons of dirt from that, and where we could also tried to not reinvent but correct the sort of fringing around, especially on Cecil Parker when he turns up to the door. Its overcoat was quite heavily fringed on that. So yeah, so we did all that and put that back together. So yeah, it has been, I think, one of the harder ones we've worked on, just purely from the technical aspect of the free script. And although we've restored in the past lots of films from combined elements from free strip, so we still had to deal with color fringing, this is actually the first time we've had the luxury of using the original free strip to start from scratch, which is obviously for the first time in this film at least, giving it a first generation look of the image, which is just great to see. And yeah, it's been great to see it on the big screen, and it's nice to see the audience still laugh as it goes through. But so the story remains eternal, but it's great just to see it in the best quality it's ever been.
I think Anthony's done a great job explaining all the challenges we had in the restoration. I would say that this was a very important project for us because obviously from the history of Ealing Studios, this is a very, very famous title from that period of British cinema. And with our previous releases under Studio Canal, we haven't always gone back to the original negative, or we've not had the budget, or the technology has not been right for us to restore the film and release it the way we have this time round. So this is probably a very, very important restoration for us. We feel like we've got the film in a place where it feels like you're watching a brand new print when it was released originally in the 50s. So in that way, it's very important for us.
I think, you know, The Ladykillers is a film I've known sort of all my life. I remember seeing it. I think, however, I think the last time I've probably seen it was probably in the late 90s, probably in standard definition even. And, you know, I think what kind of resonates is when I used to go to university, I always used to have to get the train from King's Cross to go and see it. And back in the late 90s, it still looks somewhat similar to how it does in The Ladykillers. I mean, in fact, where Jahanzeb's based, Studio Canal, they're actually just behind King's Cross, so sort of a stone's throw away from where it's all filmed. Yeah. It's just kind of fascinating to, especially now, look back at it and see it in the 50s and sort of what the area looked like and how different how different it is with everything. And I think as well, what one of the things I didn't know really till, because we, for whatever reason, we tend to read through the IMDb trivia section whenever we do a film when you're looking into it. And I think it's just a very kind of British thing that this, what you'd almost say is an encapsulation of every Ealing comedy in this case, is written by an American. It's just kind of a fantastic sort of concept in itself. So, but yeah, I think, you know, just being able, I just remember the film as well, especially in the nighttime bits towards the finale, just being a sort of blurry mess in previous releases. And it's just amazing just to see that sort of so clearly when you see the trains going by and all that. And I think you just as well gain a big appreciation for the set builders, her house as a set throughout the film, and which they built, and also with the finale with Alec Guinness and Herbert Lom on the ladder of Signal, is that how you just think in your mind how big that tunnel portal is they must have built, that they intercut with the live action footage and the blue screen. And just you, I mean, it's weird now, I think, in the digital age, to look back in that world of like the effort that went into that and how well they did it. So, but yeah, it's just been very nice to finally do a free strip from ground up, and it's just been great to Studio Canal to give us the opportunity to do that. And I say also everything the colorists have done with the color in it, because I personally think the previous HD release was very muted in comparison to this release, and it's nice to see all the color back in it. But you know, I think everyone involved in it was just delighted to work on it, and Alec Guinness is kind of a international hero of everyone, and Peter Sellers, and it's just kind of a star-studded affair to, you know, the film. This has been great.
Like Anthony mentioned, our Studio Canal office is in King's Cross, and it's like maybe a 2-minute walk from where the house would be. So I felt very odd looking back at King's Cross, how it used to be in the 50s. And I actually grew up near Ealing, so I've always had a bit of a connection with Ealing Studios. So I kind of did feel quite responsible knowing this is such a huge British film, one of the biggest releases from Ealing Studios, and kind of being an Ealing boy, I wanted to kind of do it proud. Another thing to mention is we were halfway through this project when last year, when the first lockdown kicked in. So it was really impressive to see kind of all the staff of Silver Soul adapt to working from home, and we continued to keep the project on schedule. We were still able to present it in 4K HDR, so that was really impressive. I didn't think we'd be able to do such a high level restoration working from home, but everyone adapted brilliantly, and that was another angle to this project.